Well, I'm joined now by Nabila Ramdani, who's a freelance journalist who specialises in the Arab world. Good morning.
Good morning.
From what we understand, and from the BBC's correspondent Ian Pannell, who's in Benghazi, something is going on out there which suggests that there may not, in fact, be a ceasefire on the ground, Nabila.
Well, indeed, we keep receiving mixed messages coming out of Tripoli and coming out from the representatives of the Gaddafi regime. On the one hand, we started the day yesterday hearing from Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, Colonel Gaddafi's son, saying that they will, giving assurances that there will not be any onslaught carried out on the rebels, mainly based in Benghazi, that the Gaddafi forces will mainly be positioned around the city, leaving the opportunity to the rebels to leave the country, but not certainly not interfere militarily to crush them. The day before, we heard his father say something quite different, also inviting those rebels to leave the country, but adding that sinister warning that if they were indeed willing to stay, they will have to face the consequences. That sounded rather daunting. Since then, we've heard other statesmen coming out from the foreign ministry in Libya, inviting a UN fact-finding mission, which will, and indeed observers, to make sure that indeed a ceasefire, which has now been announced by the Gaddafi regime, is well imposed and is respected. So it's very hard to gauge whether or not the Gaddafi regime is genuine about imposing a ceasefire and indeed inviting observers to make sure that the ceasefire is observed and that the civilians are safe.
Now, the terms of the suggestion, the resolution from the UN are quite interesting because they're really saying to Colonel Gaddafi, if you do not retire, if you do not get your forces to retreat, then we are allowed to bomb you, basically. And I guess he's going to push that as far as he can go, is he?
Well, I think the terms of the UN resolution are very unclear as well. There's a lot of double speak in this UN resolution because, the implications are likely to be very bloody because it speaks of protecting civilians and indeed ending violence, but it also makes it abundantly clear that armed force is going to be used against the Libyans. So the official aim of the UN resolution is to protect civilians and end violence, but the clear implied aim is a change of regime, and that's what the Gaddafi regime is not happy about because they're basically saying, how can foreign powers decide on the course of the future of Libya when clearly it's a minority of people challenging the regime and for legitimate reasons, but we feel that it's up to the Libyan people to decide for their own future and not for Western powers to interfere.
What do you make of, if there is to be a genuine ceasefire, should, for example, Colonel Gaddafi pull back from Benghazi, does the UN then have to act? I mean, is it not a stalemate in which he could carry on running large parts of the country?
Well, very much so. And I think that the move from Gaddafi to declare a ceasefire was rather smart, if I may say so. He's clearly well advised because what it does effectively, it removes the cause of any intervention. It makes the very foundation of the UN resolution null and void. So by doing that, Gaddafi is hoping at the very least to delay any intervention, but also to present all the leaders meeting in Paris today with a serious dilemma, because it will question the very legitimacy of any intervention. If indeed he stops any action, any bloody action against his own people, then, it questions the very reason of any intervention.
Well, what about that meeting in Paris, finally? What do you think is likely to come out of that? Why is it being called? Is it just to bind in the Arab nations in this adventure, if you like?
Well, I think, in my opinion, to bring in the Arab League or countries as part of the Arab League to is a rather cynical move from the West, because it makes it legitimate to interfere in yet another Muslim country, saying that, it's not a Christian versus Muslim war that we're about to embark on.
No, what we're
it's
saying,
more than that.
yeah, what it seems to be saying is that the Arab League thinks that Gaddafi has gone too far, basically, that, even by the standards of the club, if you like, this is too much.
Well, that's the main point. The Arab League. Frankly, they are being dubbed the Arab League of autocrats because, frankly, the regimes forming the Arab Leagues are not exactly democratic regimes. So a lot of voices in the Arab world are asking, what does the Arab League have to say about the nature of the regime in Libya? But it seems that the outcome of the meeting in Paris today is very clear because all the countries who have committed to interfere have also committed, warplanes, and they are clearly prepared for military action, and that's in spite of Gaddafi's ceasefire declaration. So it's we can be ready to see warplanes hovering over the Libyan skies very soon.
Thank you for that. Nabila Ramdani, freelance journalist and specialist in the affairs of the Arab world.